Hello, this is Nathan from One Web Street, the right place to discover digital presence strategies for your business. Now, in today's video, we are going to be tackling a rather technical subject, which has to do with SEO or search engine optimization. But more specifically, we're going to be looking at how you can change your titles and descriptions for different blog posts and or pages on your website to increase the CTR and or click-through rate. So you may be thinking, or you may be extremely confused and have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's okay because I'm going to explain that and break it down into digestible pieces so that you can understand how to approach what I'm talking about, and more importantly, how you can implement this on your business website. So to begin, I want to talk about why I'm talking about this and why it's important. So basically, as I've discussed in other videos on our YouTube channel, a really important aspect of having a website, a business website, more specifically, is, or any website for that matter, is you need traffic. And that means that you need people to come to your website and engage with the content on your website. And so as you are developing a website and as you're creating content on your website, then you may start to develop users or people that are coming to your website and reading blog posts or looking at embedded videos, so on and so forth. So let's say that you've created a piece of content and you're using a WordPress-based website, and you've already created the content, it's published, you've been sharing it on different social media channels, you've been trying to get links to the post or page because it has a lot of helpful content. And so maybe after several months, you are using Google Analytics and Google Webmaster tools, which I will talk more about in a second, and you're able to gather some data regarding that content that you've created, and you can see how people are engaging with it or not engaging with it when people are using the Google search engine. So I'm going to use One Web Street as an example, and the first thing that I want to talk about is Google Webmaster tools, also known as Google Search Console. Now, this is currently in beta, which means that Google is still working on developing this software, and there's more new features that are coming out and functionality. But I just want to kind of go over the basics, or some functionality that it has and how you can leverage this information on your website. So keep in mind that we've already installed Google Search Console. This tutorial is not going to explain how to do that, but we'll definitely have future videos in which we'll talk about how to go about that. There's a lot of information to show you, so if you're interested after watching this video, definitely check that out. So once you've connected Google Search Console then with your website, then you can see right here in the top left, we have One Web Street, and we can see some performance data. So this performance data is showing us data collected from the web, specifically from the Google search engine, and it's spanning the past 3 months. So since One Web Street is in its early stages of development in terms of the content that we're developing and getting links and things of that nature, the statistics are relatively low because of where we are at from a developmental standpoint. So over the last 3 months, we've gotten 40 clicks from Google, and we've had about a little over 6,000 impressions, which I'll talk about in a second, which has an average click-through rate, CTR, of 0.6%. And our average position for the different pages and posts that we have created are at about 57.4. And then you can see right here, we have a nice graph which corresponds with the colors of these different metrics over time, starting with April 22nd of this year in 2018 up till now, which is we're at July 15th. So if I scroll down a bit further, we can see these different tabs. So the first one is queries. And so queries are specifically the search terms that are being used in Google, and and then furthermore, the pages or posts that are showing up that are part of one web street, and how people are interacting with those pages or posts. So right here, for example, if someone searched Meetingbird versus Calendly, which are two different appointment setting platforms, we can see that our post on in which we compare different appointment setting platforms has had 2 clicks, and this specific keyword query has had 28 impressions. Okay. Which means that we've had a click-through rate of 7.1% for this specific keyword query. Now, the CTR rate is basically the number of clicks, 2 divided by the number of impressions, 28, which gives us 7.1. All right, so the other tabs that are available in Google Search Console is we have our Pages tab, which basically shows how different pages on your website are being searched for, or that are coming up in search queries, and how many impressions they're getting. So this is one reason why it's really important to have unique titles for the different URLs on your website. So like, for example, we can see the first one is appointment scheduling software. And so that's a blog post that we wrote about appointment scheduling software. And so we can see for this blog post, we've had 16 clicks and a little over 4,300 impressions for a click-through rate of 0.4%. And so again, I want to get back to, I want to talk a little bit more about the different tabs we have here, and then talk about how this data can be leveraged to improve or increase the number of people that are visiting your website through Google. So the next tab we have is countries. So this basically shows us the different countries in which people are coming to our website from, which is based on the IP address of people that are using their browser. For those of you that are less technically savvy, an IP address is basically a unique identifier that Google uses to determine where someone is geographically in the world. And then we can see that data coming out here. Device. This is really important. We can see that out of the people that are out of the 40 people right here, the 40 total clicks of people that have visited our website, it breaks down by device. We have desktop, mobile, and tablet. So with this data, we can see that the most amount of people are on their desktop, followed by mobile device. And we have had 0 visits from a tablet. And so let's see here. The last tab is search appearance. To be completely honest, I'm not exactly sure what this tab does because there's very little data that's available from it. So we're going to focus on the other tabs for the time being. So that's great and dandy, of course, that we have this information. So once you've installed Google Search Console, or if you installed in your website and connected them so Google can start crawling your website, you want to also be able to connect it with Google Analytics. So if I come over here, we have our One Web Street Google Analytics site in which we can look at different data. So on the left-hand side, we have several different tabs. And so if I go to Acquisition and come down here to Search Console, click on that, and let's say I click on Landing Pages. So just click on Landing Pages. And once this loads, which takes a moment, so basically once this loads, the data here is directly from Google Search Console. So there shouldn't be a difference unless the time frame for which you're using the different platforms is different. So what do I mean by that? If I come over here to the top right corner, and here I can put in our date range. And so if you recall that in Google Search Console, the data started, what's the last 3 months, but around the 22nd of April. So if I come back to Google Analytics, and let's say that I start with the 22nd of April, which, until now, which is a roughly 3 months, same time period. then we can see that the data should be identical or at least very similar. So for example, our first result here, this breaks down the different posts and pages on our website. So we have our appointment scheduling software with about 4,200 impressions. All right, so if I come to pages on our Google Search Console platform, we have appointment scheduling software, 16 clicks, 4,300 impressions. All right, and so we have 16 clicks and about 4,300 impressions. So like I said, the data is identical because they're two different Google platforms that are connecting with each other and communicating with each other. Alrighty, so the next thing that I want to talk about is specifically how can we use this data to increase the number of people coming to our site. And so this has to do with SEO or search engine optimization. Now, as you already know, there are many different factors that attribute to how people are coming to your website, and more specifically, how people are coming to your website through a search engine such as Google. So, for example, for our appointment scheduling software post, so just so we're all on the same page, if I come over to One Web Street and I click on our blog, and then we can see the different blog posts. So if I scroll down a bit and come down to the best appointment scheduling software post, in which I personally wrote, then you can see that coming right here. One thing I want to note is that the blog post is the same that we see in Google Search Console, and it's the same as in our Google Analytics. So we know that this data has to do with this particular post. All right. So if I come over to Google, sorry, google.com NCR, okay, and if I use a special search in which I'm going to ask Google to search specifically for this page, then we can see that it's the first one that comes up. And the reason it's the first one come up is because I use this special search right here, which is site colon and then the blog post. So the reason I want to bring this up is because Google has crawled this page, and we have used a plugin on our website to basically custom write the information right here. So we can see it says 6 best appointment scheduling software solutions. And then we have a description right here, which talks about the content on this page. And so if someone is searching for some of the other search queries that we had seen in our Google Search Console, like Meeting Bird versus Calendly, one of those results is going to be this right here, right? And then as someone clicks on it, then it takes them to this post on our website. So since we can see the click-through rate for this post, which is, if I come over to Google Analytics, we can see that our click-through rate is about 0.4%, which is pretty poor. Again, there's a lot of variables in this, but basically this is a factor that contributes to how a page ranks. So it is best practice to try to get your click-through rate as high as possible. And so one way to do that is to write compelling headlines and or descriptions to help increase that, all right? And the reason that we want to do that is because we want to increase the number of people that are coming to our website and engaging with our content. So the next step I want to show you is how you go about editing the content that Google is showing in the Google search engine. So if I come over to our WordPress website, and let's say I click on Edit Posts, we currently are using the Yoast SEO plugin, which is a free plugin. And basically what that enables us to do is if I scroll to the bottom of our post, give me a moment here, then here we have Yoast SEO, which is again from that plugin I was mentioning. And I can go ahead, excuse me, and I can change how this is displaying. Okay, so I can click on edit snippet. And so one thing that's interesting is that when I click over here, it's titled 6 Best Appointment Scheduling Software Solutions. But then I added in parentheses 2018, and that has not updated yet in the Google Search Console. But just to give you an idea, I'm going to, let's see here, just take that out for a second. But as you see, when I cut that out, you can see that this changed, right? And so this snippet right here is basically a preview of how this post or page would look in Google when after the page or post is crawled. And when I mean crawled, that means that Google's bots have looked over the page and are currently indexing it in the search engine for related keywords that people are searching for. Okay, so this one is already custom. All right, I've already edited it to try to encourage people to click on it to see what the content's about. And you can see that we have like this green line right here, which is part of the Yoast plugin that basically shows you how many characters you have available to, in which you can write additional content. And you can also change the slug. So we can see right here it says appointment scheduling software. If I remove that, then that goes away. And so you can basically write whatever you want that you want Google to display. And the same goes with our meta description. So one issue right now is that we are limited to the number of characters that can be displayed. And I know that because you can see right here that our bar right here is orange, which means that there's too many characters. So I can simply maybe, it says right now, are you a business owner that is looking for ways to automate your business? Do you need to constantly make appointments with customers or prospects to sell your product or service? I'm gonna delete that. And maybe since we're still over because of this orange line right here, I'm going to rewrite this. Okay, so you can see that now our bar has decreased because there's available characters left. So are you a business owner that is looking for ways to automate your business? Check out this blog post, which compares different popular scheduling software platforms. Okay, so we're over the limit. So you can see how it turned green. So we want to make sure that it's under that limit. Check out this blog post which compares different popular scheduling software. Let me just put a period. Check out this blog post which compares different popular scheduling software. Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to click update. And then what I'm going to do is scroll to the top here. If you have a plugin, a caching plugin, then you would want to clear your cache so that this update occurs. And then basically you just need to wait a bit for Google to make that update in the search engine. So that is basically the process that you can go through to update the description and title for a post or page on your website. So you may be asking, okay, well, let's say that you have a lot of different content on your website. And so how do you go about the process of prioritizing which content you should update first? And so if we go back to Google Analytics, we can see all our different posts and pages, and we can see how the click-through rate compares for this different content. And so in Google Analytics, if you click on CTR, then it's going to organize all the content by the highest click-through rate. Now, it's really important that when you're looking at different content to update, that you need to make sure that there's enough data so it makes sense to update the title and description. So like, for example, we have a courses page, and right now we've only had 6 impressions, which is extremely small and not enough to make a determination about whether or not it's important to update the title or description for this particular page, even though we've already had 1 click and we have our highest click-through rate of 16.67%. But that doesn't really mean much because, again, there's not very much data to look at. So we can see that for our homepage, we have 147 impressions, and we have a pretty healthy click-through rate of 8.16%. So those are pretty healthy. And so basically, my suggestion is that you start focusing on content that has a decent amount of impressions, but maybe the click-through rate is under 3%. That's not a standard, but that's basically something to start with. And so if I scroll down a bit, I can increase the number of rows that I'm looking at. And so we can start to see that, like, for example, we wrote a blog post on how to use Canva for business. It has a decent amount of impressions, 331, but only 2 people have clicked. And so it has a relatively low amount of, a relatively low click-through rate. And so I could just go into my WordPress website, look at all posts, and search for this particular page, how to use Canva for business. Let's see if I search posts, then I can find it a little faster. Okay, how to use Canva for business, edit. And again, we can go through the same process of scrolling to the bottom of the blog post and searching for our Yoast plugin, and then going ahead and updating that content, and then giving it a few days for Google to crawl this page and display the updated content that you have written. So that is basically the process that you need to go through. Another quick tip is that if you are going through this process on your website, it's really important to be able to compare and keep numbers or keep metrics on the changes that occur over time. And so right here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a down arrow. And if I click on that, we can create what is called an annotation. And so this is just a way in which you can document the changes you've made. So I could say changed title for appointment software post. All right. And so then I can save that, and anyone that's a user on Google Analytics can log in and see that I've made that change on July 18th. And then for in the future, there's other options in which you can compare and contrast how that click-through rate has changed over time. And so that can be really helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that for now, but just wanted to make you aware of that. All right. So that concludes what I wanted to cover in this particular video. It was quite technical. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them down below in the comment section on YouTube, and we'll be happy to get back to you. And or if there's other videos that I could create to go more in depth with what I talked about here, I will be sure to add that to the video creation content list. All right, so my name is Nathan. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you got some value from watching this video. Be sure to check out other videos on our YouTube channel, One Web Street, and also be sure to check out onewebstreet.com. Thank you so much. Cheers.